Welcome back everybody, I am Carter Sandvin, and this is the channel for Sandbox Illustration. So today I actually had a pretty cool idea for a video, which would be rewriting my first ever comic book. Now this is one that I haven't actually written yet. It's the one that I've talked about in the past. It is the Aces story. It is a story about me and my friend Adam and the people that I know going through the apocalypse. I know that that's not the ballsiest story for me to write, but I just wanted to give myself something that would be fun to write but also simple, because this is going to be my first ever test run of writing a graphic novel. As you guys know, I aspire to write many graphic novels in my life, but I've never done it before, and I want to get the muscles working a little bit in writing a graphic novel before I go out and publish anything. And this is going to be the story that I do that with. The only thing is, I started to write this story about a year and a half ago. It was a concept that I had because I thought that it would be a cool story to write, but I knew that I could never publish it. So I just thought, hey, I'll just make it for myself. And then I thought, if I make it an actual graphic novel, then absolutely, this could be something that would be perfect for me to practice on. But that's exactly it. I started writing it a year and a half ago, where my writing knowledge wasn't at its peak yet. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I'm a writing connoisseur or anything like that, but I'm definitely better than I was back at the end of 2021. In fact, many of the stories that I was gonna write and publish, I've either completely scrapped or completely rewritten because of my newfound knowledge on writing. And I think that this story deserves the same level of care and scrutiny. Because if this is going to be my first test run of writing, then I want to make sure that I'm putting in my 100% with it, just like I would with any of my other stories. So, what we are going to do with the Aces story today is we are going to start completely from the beginning. Now, I know what you guys are thinking.
But Carter, what kind of video is this going to be if you're starting from scratch?
Don't worry, today is just going to be the brainstorming section. This is where I am going to just go onto a document and then type up what I want for the theme and then the main moral, and then I'll kind of do what I've described as like the writing tree from there. So I was originally gonna go through the previous story and go through the ideas that I had in there and highlight what I liked and what I might want to bring over, but again, that's not really faithful to the writing process. That's not how you should do it, or at least I'm just going to say it for myself. That's not how I should do it, because I want the story to be as organic as possible. I don't want to shove ideas in there that may end up not fitting. If I find a way down the line for that idea to fit, then it's going to fit and I'll be happy. But I want this to be a complete refresher on the Aces story. So all that we know is it's going to be just a basic story where me and Adam take our knowledge that we've made from outdoor exploration and use that to try and rebuild a community in a world that has essentially collapsed at this point. So let's just start with the theme, and then from the theme, we always go from there. You start with your two ideas. You have your main concept and then the moral that you attach to it, and then we'll try to branch every single idea off of that. If you guys would like to know my writing process, or at least my mindset when I'm writing, I did make a video on it, not to plug myself, but I did make a video called What I've Learned from Writing. I'll have it in the description, and that video breaks down every single useful tip that I can use for writing. It breaks down my writing process, any little neat rule or trick that has helped me create my stories. And we are going to be applying those today, so if I do something and you're kind of confused by it, hopefully I explain it more in that video. But let's just get to typing. So, the theme, community. And I guess the moral from that is just kind of assumed to be the union of people in dire situations is the optimal way to go in the event of a fallout. One thing that I do want to note is, because this isn't a story that I'm showing to other people, I'm gonna let things be put into the story if they feel like ripoffs or copies of other stories. So like there may be a point in the story that's really similar to something in like The Walking Dead, or something that's really similar to one of my other stories, and that's okay, because I don't need this story to be original. I just need it to be a good story, you know? Original isn't always good. I think what's more important is having a cohesive story, and that's what I'm going to be aiming for. So if I have some rip-off scenes, I have some rip-off scenes. I'm okay with it. So the setting is, I think I want to keep the same setting that I had before. Hill City, fall of 2021. Now I'm going to do the quick summary of it. Carter and Adam have always been huge fans of exploring the outdoors and getting in touch with nature. When they find themselves in an apocalyptic event, they try to use their newfound knowledge of natural survival to help the people around them. So now, do we just want to hop right into the apocalypse? It seems like we should. That is the tipping point of the story. That's the spark that sets off the entire thing. World building. So I want to think about this thematically. So again, the way that I've always thought of it is that if your story has a moral, if you're following a villain, then your story should go against that moral, or at least it should be putting up a negative moral. Your hero should be there to symbolize that moral being brought to fruition, right? They're there to show the audience that, in this case, me and Adam are here to show. I'm just going to call them Carter and Adam. I'm going to think about them as characters now. But in this story, Carter and Adam are trying to bring to fruition the idea that the union of people in the event of a fallout is the best way to ensure survival. But then there's also something deeper in that, and that is, it's not just about numbers. The main idea is keeping to who we were as people is still possible, It's this idea has been tossed around in The Walking Dead a few times, where some characters have said there's a difference between living and just breathing. That's the whole thing with we are the Walking Dead, we are not the Walking Dead. Now this one I do want to focus more on communities and people coming together. And so what I want to do with that is I want the focus to be that there is a huge disadvantage to people being together, right? There's a huge disadvantage to people being in a large group. So whatever is causing this apocalypse, its main target needs to be large groups of people, which, by the way, would ensure a quick apocalypse to happen, because this creature would target cities, especially the most populated ones, places with millions of people or more. So I'm going to go write that down as a little note here. So world building, apocalypse. Right here, I'm just going to be writing down some details that I want out of it, right? Details and ideas. Large groups of people should be a disadvantage. What did I type there? A disadvantage. Much better. Large groups of people should be a disadvantage. So the threat, I guess we should just go through and write down every single idea, you don't want to leave out ideas. You want to consider everything humanly possible. So I guess we just have to write it down. Zombies. Do the Zumba. Aliens. Okay. Need some more water. I want up my nose. Animals. What I was going to get to with this was it's about the fall of society and essentially us building a way of living outside of nature. We're going to get really weird and philosophical with all these ideas. Like what does it mean to have a community? Because again, it's not just numbers. Because in our previous story, we saw that with that one society where it was everyone was treated like literal animals. It's not just about numbers and it's not just about function. It's about the people involved and making sure that everyone is not only taken care of, but everyone is treated with humanity. So animals is one that I've considered, maybe even I have to write it down. Werebeasts. Mythical creatures. So maybe a mythical creature that targets people, I don't know. But I am going to look up some ideas for causes of apocalypses. I don't want to do anything if you guys know what a cold apocalypse, is it cold or slow apocalypse? It's one of those terms. That just means society's just gradually falling. There's not really anything that caused it or made it happen rapidly. It's just the more that time goes on, society deteriorates. I don't want that. I also don't want something like nuclear war. Well, I guess you could make a theory that it freaking... No, because we've already got that in Altered Humans. No, you know what? I'll write these down. You have to write them down. I have to write them down. It's just part of the rule. You can't not write something down. It doesn't have to make sense at the moment, you know what I mean? It's better to throw out a bad idea than miss a good one. Disease! That's not bad. We'll call it an impact event. That's something like a meteorite. Technology? I guess that wouldn't be bad. It's kind of like if AI were to retaliate. I hate that plot line. It's so tired, especially with all of our political conversations about AI nowadays. It's so exhausting. But in some aspects, I think it could work, because if we think about it in terms of society, one of the things that could cause the apocalypse is society getting too far away from what it once was. Like, we almost lost community. The more that I say it, the more it makes less sense. My point is, in the previous story, that's what we did. In fact, I want to open up that document. I want this outbreak, that's acne. I want the outbreak to represent the collapsing of society. You know what I mean? Do I want it to be to the point where, like, it's people's fault? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it needs to get to that point. Another way to look at this is that society kind of brought this on itself. What I did with the previous story was that actually Adam's character had a big problem with the way that society was structured at the current moment. They didn't like how everything was starting to become more of a game about numbers, because society was just so large that it felt like individuals weren't getting the direct care that they needed, you know? Societies were becoming larger, so ironically, your connection with the people around you became more strained. And in fact, that's what he wanted to do with the Aces. When Carter and Adam landed in the apocalypse, they were trying to find a missing person. And so with that, what I was considering was maybe the cause of the outbreak was something that humans brought on ourselves to try and become more and more advanced, getting away from the side of us that was connected with nature. Because you see in our main characters that they have a huge love for nature. They're constantly outside, they're constantly learning new tricks on like how to build fires and how to find natural sources of food out in the woods. And that was actually the cause of the apocalypse in the original story, was that people tried to essentially like beat nature, if that makes any sense, because they made a medication that tried to cure cancer. Now, with the way that our bodies are structured nowadays, and just with how biology works and how nature works, that's kind of one of like the impossible things to defeat. At least that's how I thought of it. There's ways to treat cancer, there's ways to save people from cancer, but you can't prevent cancer, because cancer comes from something that is just a completely natural process of our biology. It just so happens that it can have a bad outcome. And so people started to take this medication for it, and it turned all of them into more feral humans, because it was rotting their brains. Because this is something that I would have to think about. Like I need to think about the outbreak and how it ties in thematically, not only with the world and the whole story, but with our main characters. Because they need to look at this outbreak and then look at how society was and realize we need to change something. And so I think I might want to keep that. I might want to keep it being man-made in some way. What I could do is I could keep all the properties of the creature from before, but make it something that is like huge and visceral and violent. Because I wrote on here werebeasts. With werebeasts, the way that I imagined it was humans were trying to use nature to advance beyond nature, to where they wouldn't need that kind of stuff. So then like we could get to a point where we're like terraforming other planets, and to where we're living in space shuttles or living like in the sky. I don't know, something like that. Essentially humanity trying to find their utopia past all of the previous setbacks that came just with nature, you know, trying to beat the concept of predator versus prey, trying to beat natural causes of death, things like that. I don't know. But I think I want this cause of the apocalypse to represent the pendulum essentially swinging too far and nature kind of taking over again. Like showing that our current structure of society didn't work, you know? And so now we're kind of suffering the price for it. Now, by the way, can we just like... I need to have a talk with you guys. When I talk about all this stuff, I'm not trying to say how I feel. I'm not trying to say what my own philosophies of the current status of the world are. I don't care. You guys might know this if you watched my content from before. I don't get very active politically. I just like to discuss ideas. Mainly, I like to write stories. So I like to consider different perspectives. And I'd like to consider different ideas that we can bring to make new stories. Sometimes that may get a little political. Or it may at least go against the current ideology that you believe in. You know what? That's okay. It's okay that you believe in that ideology. It's okay that I'm going against it. I don't want you to listen to me and think that I'm trying to bring some... I don't even know. But I felt like the more that I was saying what I was saying, it felt like it was going to piss somebody off, and that's not my goal. I'm not here trying to upset anybody. I'm just trying to write a story about the apocalypse, where me and my friend are going around bashing in some zombie heads. I don't know, maybe. But I'm not trying to say how I feel about society. Not trying to put in my political takes. I have some, sure, but I don't care. And you shouldn't either. That's all I wanted to say. If you're sitting here thinking that I'm a moron of some kind, or that I'm a threat, you're dumb. No, listen, come closer. Someone needed to tell you before. Your brain is pudding. You're a doof. You're a big doof. Keep that in mind. Or keep it in whatever you have of a mind. Back to the story, everybody. I like the idea of feral humans, but not just people. I think that's the reason that I thought the apocalypse was so lame, is because it was essentially just people that were like me walking down the street with blood in my mouth going like... It's that kind of thing. I want it to be like an actual threat. Something that could kill people en masse. You know? Zombies, like, it makes sense. Zombies, it doesn't make sense. It only makes sense in The Walking Dead because if you guys don't know, and I've discussed this in the past, maybe not on this channel, but the lore of that world was the concept of zombies doesn't actually exist. The idea of a body coming back to life, it was never even conceived of in the past. So when people saw that people were coming back and starting to eat people, they didn't know what to do. And everybody panicked. And then the government panicked. And then the world powers panicked where they couldn't do anything about it. And they got overtaken within weeks. It was an extremely fast outbreak. That's why it resulted in a literal apocalypse. But our world today, we would handle zombies. We've said it before, especially if it was something man-made. I feel like we'd be able to prevent a zombie outbreak if we actually had that. We've handled diseases before. You know, we handled so many things. We didn't, like, stop diseases or prevent diseases, but we stopped many major pandemics and plagues. We've seen, you guys know what I'm talking about. So I don't want anything like zombies. So I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna put a big fat X. Aliens? No. Like, what is it about aliens that screams community? You know, it's something that could, like, cause an outbreak, but no aliens. Animals, yes, I'm gonna keep that because, again, I like the idea of the pendulum swinging back. Werebeasts, mythical creature. This isn't a story that I'm gonna show people, so it doesn't have to be original. So, like, if I were to do a mythical creature, it would be one that's already existed. If I can find one that kind of holds that concept, which I guess werebeasts are mythical creatures. When I say mythical creature, though, that kind of implies that, like, some sort of, like, myth or magic is going to be tied into the lore. Mythical creature could hold that viewpoint, and so I'm going to keep that in mind. Nuclear war? Question mark. Slow apocalypse? No. Because it's the opposite. It's that society's trying to become too advanced. I don't think that society would slowly deteriorate. And it needs to be fast, you know? It needs to be something where our group can walk in and look outside and see, oh, the world's ending. Okay, interesting. Disease? Maybe. An impact event? No. That's a big no. AI... It does make sense. I just hate it. I really hate that idea. I don't want to make, like, a Terminator series. And also, like, if you think about it, technology connects to, like, society, but it has to connect to both society and community, and showing like our group is trying to move past what we have. Oh, the more that I say it, the more that it makes sense. I have to write it down. I have to. It could literally just be like, no, but AI wouldn't destroy society. Like, okay, maybe I have too much of a human brain on the concept, but like I've never been scared of AI like other people are, because I don't think that AI would want to end the human race. At least like my concept of AI is like AI would want itself to function as far as possible, unless it gets to the point of self-replicate, I guess, I don't know. But no, I don't like it. I don't like it. X. You get a big fat X from me. Now what we're going to do, we're going to have a section here. Since it's still in the section of the threat, we're going to do the runner-ups. So what I want to do with this is I have the ones that I either like or that I favor, that I think could be ideas, and I want to go through and try and write down how they could work. Try my best, like put myself in the mindset of this is the one that I'm going with, how am I going to make it work, right? And I'm going to do that with every single one, and see which explanation makes the most sense. Oh, I didn't even realize that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to put a star next to them. That's my bad. Because those aren't X's. Like, I don't want to get rid of those. Zombie/altered humans. Because I wrote in altered... Maybe I'll just do this. Zombies, altered humans. This one is a question mark. But zombies is an X. So, I have all of the runner-ups for what could be the cause of the apocalypse. And what I did with these was I tried to put myself in the mindset of, if I did choose this one, then how would I go about it and what would be my justification for doing that? So I essentially tried to think of each individual option as if it were what my story was going to revolve around. And then I tried to write down my justification and my thought process behind it. And I'm going to go through those and pick out which one makes the most sense for me. Which one would A, make the most sense, and B, still provide the cool story that I want. Anyway, our first up is altered humans, and this was my little description for it. Society could have attempted to try and advance past our own human nature in the name of innovation, but they soon learned that trying to be essentially utopian can come back with a vengeance. And in parentheses there, I have the whole concept, the philosophy that people have of utopia is a dystopia. Like, once you get to the point of utopia, it's no longer utopian, ironically. It becomes a dystopia. Hello? And that's how I thought that it would play out in this world, was trying to be perfect. It really just comes back to slap them in the face. Then animals, it's kind of the same concept, but it's more focused on nature itself. The further humans and broader society separated themselves from nature, not only the world beyond cities, but also what makes us human, the pendulum could swing too far the other direction and nature could reclaim the world. I thought that this would be an interesting one too, because our main characters, Carter and Adam, would really take a liking to nature and stepping out of the city boundaries and going and exploring the natural world. So it would be kind of cool if they really had a leg up in that way. But again, that one's kind of lame because it's just animals. And also I feel like we'd be able to handle animals. It fit thematically, so I kept it. Werebeasts. So in an attempt to evolve ourselves beyond our fragile state, certain parties could experiment with other animals and take their survival characteristics to advance humans to the true position of the apex predator. The only problem being the rest of the human race being lowered on the food chain. That one is a lot cooler of an idea, but it's kind of the last two combined in a really cool way. Like the one about animals in a way reclaiming nature because we tried too hard to be advanced. And ironically, we are the ones that brought them back to the top of the food chain. Mythical creatures. Now again, I know that this one was always a stretch, but what I wrote in here is, if there is possibly any mythical creature whose main purpose was to prey on humans, then a world whose main focus is scientific and technological innovation would have no preparations for such a threat. Kind of going back to the whole thing of the Walking Dead world didn't ever even consider the concept of zombies. And while I would be using a pre-existing mythical creature, we don't have, like, systems in place if we ever have, like, dragons show up or something like that, you know what I mean? Nuclear war? Nuclear destruction would be the classic case of society being too strong for its own good. Whoever has the bigger stick is in charge, but if those sticks can either kill or alter the rest of the people around you in horrific ways, are you really in charge anymore? And then disease. Something that not only can come from a completely natural source, but can also be hidden right under your nose. How prepared are you for the majority of the population to wreak havoc on those around them? Gosh, these are all really good. The first two, animals is out. That one, it doesn't make any sense. That's something that clearly we would have in place. So like what, bears come back or something like that? Like we've been handling animals our entire lives. So like us advancing wouldn't bring back animals, ironically enough, you know what I mean? If anything, we're having the opposite problems right now, but I digress. Werebeasts kind of are a mythical creature, but like mythical creature is just like that creature existing. The problem is that creature just existing doesn't seem to really play into the concept of, because again, you have to think about this of like, it has to connect back to society, but then how it connects back to society also needs to share some connection with the concept that community is best. That like, we've gone too far with how we've structured our communities, but you still need communities. So I want it to be a threat that like tears civilizations apart. Literally. I'm gonna get rid of nuclear war because there needs to be like a thing that is there after the world has ended. I don't want it to just be an event where people are dead, because it should, in theory, be really easy to rebuild society after just one thing happened. Now, nuclear war could be the cause of what makes those things. Let's say that we stuck with altered humans. They could be that way from nuclear destruction, right? So kind of something like Fallout 4 where you have, what are they called, ghouls? Like people that have been like affected by radiation. We'll see if we can come up with something better. But for now, I am just gonna get rid of nuclear war, and I'll just put that sort of in the lane of altered humans. Disease. Again, that's more of something that it's like, it's an event rather than a threat. I need it to be a threat. So like, again, nuclear war or disease could be the cause for like an altered human, but I would just want it to be an altered human at that point. So disease, nuclear war, and animals, those are out. Werebeasts, that is a really, really cool idea. Now, would those be werebeasts that just like come out of nowhere, or did we create them? So I did put in like they were created, but then werebeasts could also kind of be the mythical creature thing. The problem is something like a mythical creature, I don't know how that would matter. Like, I feel like if I were to do something that was like a mythical creature, it feels like community would not be the theme at all of the, or at least like the focus of the story. Now, that's the thing, again, like werebeasts could be something that's altered in humans. Maybe whatever did happen to humans, they could replicate like animals in some way, but I don't think I just want it to be werebeasts, like werewolves or werebear or werelion, whatever, and a mythical creature that would kind of show the hubris of society to be like, oh, like that's not a threat, that's just a cartoon, that's something that you read about in books, but then it shows up to actually be real, and then we're like, uh-oh. But the problem is, like, at that point, then the mythical creature would have to replicate thematically in some way community, right? And either tearing it apart, where it kills off like hordes of people. The problem is we're starting to get into the realm of like having a high concept story. What I mean by a high concept story, The Walking Dead was actually really intelligent in how they did it because of the fact that nobody knows what actually caused this. They don't have to explain it. And that's not even an insult. It's just a clever way to kind of save yourself the headache. You need everything in your story to connect. And I don't just mean like everything comes together into one piece. I mean like when you introduce something, what is either the cause of that or the result of that? It's a Chekhov's gun thing. So if I were to just mention like, oh, we're cloning humans, then it's like, huh? You're what? You're introducing this idea of a literal like godlike scientific discovery. And we're sitting here talking about a few dudes that are like holed up in a cave trying to cook elk. And then again with mythical creatures, those existing, that's like, what? How do those exist? So like my point with that is, if I were to introduce like a mythical creature, I would have to give a bunch of world building and lore on how those exist, and unfortunately that stuff just wouldn't be important to the story. And then stuff like cloning, that wouldn't be important to the story either. I guess cloning would, because then that would go back again to the whole like utopia versus dystopia thing. I know what I'm doing. Like I've gone through all my ideas, so I'm gonna stick with altered humans, and I want it to be something that was man-made, something that was caused by us. We tried to do some experiment and it just didn't work. Now again, I want to go all out with it. Like, we already have the thematic idea. It doesn't need to go past that. In fact, a lot of the stuff that I had before is actually really, really cool. You rip off the head. You don't even mess with it. You just go after the meat of the body to show how mindless they are. They don't even care about the mind. The brain is completely past them. They just see this thing. Oh, it's like the top of a soda bottle. You just throw it away, and then they love bone marrow. So they will mutilate skeletons. They eat the meat, and then they break open, eat the marrow, and then get rid of the skeleton entirely. To show like the destruction of the structure, right? Oh, destruction. Construction, the opposite. I just remembered. It's not that I like remembered, like I forgot. It's just I didn't think about that. No, I knew that was a thing. It's just like, it came back into my mind. And I guess I just forgetting. I don't sound very big brain right now, do I? So the next sections that we're going to do are going to be characteristics of the threat and then origin of the threat. Essentially, what it does and then what society did to make it do that. Again, we're going to do what we did before, just write down a bunch of ideas. I want it to be something to where no one would really bat an eye at it happening. Or at least the broader population wouldn't necessarily know about it. Maybe once it's actually discovered, it's too late. So maybe human experimentation could be a good thing. Ooh, it could almost be something like along the lines of like the Russian sleep experiment. They try to, like militaries around the world try to do what they can to make their soldiers stronger. So like maybe at the beginning you could hear something of like, oh, like there's like civil unrest because these countries are doing this to their soldiers, and so the US is wondering if they'll have to do the same or something like that. Like, we are preparing for war. Then it's like, oh, the war doesn't happen. It's just everyone dies. Should we have the source of it relate back to them like being hungry? In considering the origin, we need to ask ourselves, why do these things target large groups of people? Like, what is it about them, and what is it about what changed them that makes them hungry? Like, they just eat people. They shred people to death and like eat their meat and their bone marrow and stuff. This is really weird, but I'm just gonna write it down. A food supplement for the impoverished. They develop something that's like, it's got all of your nutrition in one thing, and then they're like, yeah, try this. My problem with disease is that you have to write it in a way to where the main group got lucky that they avoided it. That's why I don't really want it to be anything that could like spread, you know what I mean? Because like the group could be surviving, but then all of a sudden, oh, look, we caught it, we're dead. And I don't just want to like recreate any sort of Walking Dead type thing where it's something that like affects you after death or something. Like I already said that I don't want to do zombies. I'm not going to put in anything like vaccines. I don't want it to turn into something like an anti-vax story where it's like, oh look, the people that aren't vaccinated are going to be the ones to save the planet. And it's like, however you stand on vaccines, I don't, like I said before, I don't care. Who knew that this story would get so like deep and political? But again, it's like, I don't care where you stand on them. I just don't want this story to be that. You know what sucks is that like the Last of Us came up with something really cool, that it was something in crops, fertilizer or something like that they were putting in crops. And so like you saw Joel and his daughter at the beginning, they like got super lucky that they managed to dodge all things where they eat flour. Wait a minute, actually, new food supplement for the impoverished would actually be really, really cool. It would really, really fit with this, because I think it would fit with the setting where, you know, it's more of a Midwestern area, so it's not as large, which means that there's not as much job opportunity, and so people there might struggle for income. So then you would have a large population that's just like staying at shelters and things like that, or it's something that's like government provided, that it's like if you're like even below this tax bracket. So like maybe people are seeing like maybe at this point we write into this world that there's like a record level of poverty. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what to do. Hear me out on this. I'm gonna kind of change history just a little bit. COVID happened, but it happened in 2016, not 2020. It affected a different election cycle. And so COVID played out the exact same way that it did. And so we saw some of the effects that happened with temporarily closing down the economy. And so some people were struggling then with jobs. Some people weren't working anymore. Some people stayed at home, different things like that. And so we saw the poverty levels go up over the next 4 years at an increasing rate. And so scientists got their little hands together and they worked with agriculturists and they worked with different places around the area and find like the healthiest ways to get your hands on these things, right? And it's a new type of food, and something about that food just freaking did something to their bodies, man, and they start to... Should I do some research on this? Maybe it turns out that one of the things that's in the food to provide energy turns out to like literally be a steroid, but it's an extremely like toxic steroid, something that really just messes with your physique. I want it to be, I want this to be completely original though, because I want the people that change to be actual like I want them to look like Hulks almost. Like I want this to be a threat that kills humanity, dude. With it connecting to food, these people would actually get like so hungry in their new state, right? Because they're given essentially artificial nutrition. Wow. That would be really, really interesting. It could be something that's for like apocalypse bunkers. That would fit with the character later on. That they like have like an apocalypse bunker, so they buy this food, and then you see the survivalists kind of start to tweak out a little bit. That is good. That is so good. I just figured it all out. So that's what this story is going to be. The world, after suffering an economic hit, saw that the poverty rate had reached like record levels, and so they tried to do something that could help the new homeless community, and in doing so they ended up kind of poisoning them and altering their state, and ironically in the process of trying to fix society, they completely destroyed it. And so the only people that would be affected by this were people that ate this supplement. And then I'll get more into details later on with the actual story about what the transformation looks like, what these people do, although I want the people to do exactly what they did with the previous story. You know, they rip off the head, eat the bone marrow, get rid of the skeleton altogether. Maybe the thing like gave them like an appetite for bone marrow, because maybe the supplement had bone marrow in it to provide some of those vitamins that you get in bone marrow, some of those nutrients. Interesting. Okay. I see you. But yeah, I have my apocalypse, and it's so good. It's so good. And yeah, this is going to be a super fun story for me to write, and I want to keep you guys along for the journey the entire way, because this isn't something that I need to like, let's just say, play with my marketing for, because it's not a story that I'm going to release to the public, so I'm not depending on the advertising looking right or the marketing looking right, because I don't need it to, because I'm not going to profit off of this. But I can't wait for you guys to follow down the journey of the Aces story with me. Yeah. That's going to be it for me. This was Carter Sandman with Sandbox Illustration. Make sure to check in the description for links to more of my content. Then like the video, comment on it, and subscribe for weekly art and food supplement zomboid humanoid like creature related content. Anyways, have fun, dudes.